podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the 1865 match report, as we are looking back on Forest's defeat at Anfield, where they were beaten 3-2 by Liverpool. A spirited display from Steve Cooper's side on the day, and a performance which I think gives us hope, not only for our away performances for the rest of the season, but also that Forest might be able to get themselves out of relegation trouble and survive in the Premier League this season. Tom is joining me for this match report, and he was there at Anfield in the away end. Tom, before we get into the game, a quick look at the Forest team news. So it was one change from the defeat against Man United. Orel Mangala coming in for Brennan Johnson, which meant that Forest lined up with a back three, five across the midfield with wing-backs, and Taiwo Awoniyi up front with Morgan Gibbs-White just behind. On Match of the Day, they had it down as a 5-4-1 and Forest really packing the midfield. So Navas in goal, Neco Williams, Felipe, Moussa Niakate, Scott McKenna and Renan Lodi, Orel Mangala, Remo Freuler, Morgan Gibbs-White and Danilo, and Taiwo Awoniyi up front against his former club. So that meant Brennan Johnson on the bench. What were your thoughts on the team news when you saw it and the approach that Forest were looking to take in this game?
Well, I just think that the right thing was to pack them in midfield and so can get more bodies in there, because after last week's display against Man U, I watched it back and we couldn't get within 10 yards of Casemiro, Eriksen and Fernandes. So I can see why he packed the midfield. And to be honest, Brennan Johnson's played a lot of football recently, and he had a couple of knocks last week, and I thought at one point he was going off because he was obviously holding his ankle or knee in front of the A block. So I can see why he did it, like just give him a bit of a rest and come on like 60 odd minutes to run at like Van Dijk and Konate and everything. Another thing what I took from the lineup yesterday was we didn't have to rely on Johnson too much. He's been like the focal point of our side this year, and everything went through him previously in terms of assists and scoring goals and everything. But yesterday I thought we looked more of a team because we wasn't relying on one player and everybody had to do their bit. And even Gibbs-White, he was like, I think in the last month or so, he's probably not performing as he would like to. And he had a better game yesterday. So yeah, I wasn't too surprised by the lineup, to be honest. And Brennan's played a lot of football recently, and it nearly worked if you looked at the result kind of thing. He come on and he could have nicked it towards the end. Nick a draw, I should say.
It was certainly a more spirited performance from Forest, and we will go into that in a bit more detail shortly. Just to mention, at 6 minutes past 3, 6 minutes into the game, the travelling Forest fans held up a banner that read, "Respect the 97, solidarity with survivors, no to tragedy," chanting. Now, it was the 34th anniversary of the Hillsborough disaster last weekend, and I thought this was a great gesture from the Forest fans. It was something that was warmly received by the Anfield crowd as well, Tom.
Yeah, and it was spine-tingling to get a level of appreciation from the Kop, because we all know the Kop is synonymous and iconic in world football, and to get the Kop to appreciate that gesture, and I think because of the tenacity of the Liverpool people, how much they fought over the years to rightfully get the justice they deserve, and obviously Forest fans were there that day because obviously Forest were the other team in the semi-final, and we're getting a bit of like recognition. Well, I wouldn't say recognition, but there's more thought going out to the Forest fans what they witnessed that day, and it was kind of it was a lovely gesture and a classy gesture. And even before the game, Steve Hodge laid a wreath at the Hillsborough Memorial, which I saw yesterday, and seeing all the names on the the plaque at where the Hillsborough Memorial is, it's like really poignant because you look at the names on there, and even though you didn't know them on a personal level, obviously, but to see there was like women there, there was family there. If you there's two girls there, which their father has been. He's been on documentaries about the Hillsborough disaster, fighting for justice and everything. And they were like 15 and 19, and at the end of the day, they went to go and see their team at a football match and never came home. So it was it's like really poignant. And the gesture what Forest fans made yesterday regarding the 97 is really classy and poignant, and it's still poignant 34 years on.
Yeah, absolutely. Back to the game, and in the first half, Forest were looking to keep Liverpool quiet, which I think, given the form that Liverpool are in, having put 6-pass leads the other night and having picked up of late, certainly in terms of their goal scoring and their wins coming off the back of that, I think that was a solid approach that Forest took. And in that first half, they did a very decent job of it. The big chance was a header from Virgil van Dijk, and that was tipped over by Keylor Navas. But outside of that, they didn't really... There was that one, and then Neco Williams had a clearance on the line as well. Outside of that, the Forest were not really overly stretched or kind of holding on in that first half, which I thought was positive, and they got to half-time at 0-0. I mean, were you thinking with that performance that Forest were all right here?
Yeah, pretty much. There was a couple of like hairy moments, which is going to be expected away from home and against a team like Liverpool. I mean, every time Salah got on the ball and Jota got on the ball and Cody Gakpo, you kind of like fearing the worst with their quality. But no, Forest held out really well, and it's inevitable that Keylor Navas is going to make a few saves, which he dealt with quite comfortably. And then the other one which was cleared off the line. And then there was like a hairy moment where the ball come in, and I think it took a couple of deflections and it hit. I think it was near Carter's hand or Mangala, and everybody like around was like thinking, "Oh no, here we go!" And then Michael Oliver waved it away, thankfully. So there was a couple of moments where you think, well, a bit of quality might have been hurt there, but. Gibbs-White, he had a chance at the cop end, and I think with looking back on it, he'd probably thinking he's disappointed because Alisson's quite far off his line, and there was he could have like wrapped his foot around it a bit more and got it up and over Alisson, and he just like hit it straight down the throat, which was a routine save for Alisson. But yeah, Forest held up pretty well, and you think that was a good half. So yeah, it's like so far so good at half time.
And then early in the second half, Forest conceded. It was 90 seconds after the restart. A set piece, a corner. The ball played in by Trent Alexander-Arnold. It found its way to Fabinho. He nodded it towards goal. Renan Lodi's there ready to clear the ball off the line, but he's beaten to it by Jota, and he nods it in, and quite a simple goal for him in the end. And an early goal in that second half, which is disappointing because coming back after the restart, you're hoping that you switched on and you don't concede in that situation.
Yeah, it's pretty the same as when we played Aston Villa away a few weeks ago. You've done relatively well in the first half, then you shoot yourself in the foot. And a couple of takes I can take from the first goal is, I know it's completely back four compared to last season, but Steve Cooper was emphasising you make the first contact, you make sure you make the first. A lot of times this season, I think we've let 19 in from set pieces because we keep going like. I know that you got more technical players and the movement's a lot better than the Championship and the step up. I get all of that, but once you don't make the first contact in the box, and then everybody's all over the place. And looking back on it, I think Renan Lodi, I know he's probably his forte isn't heading the ball like near Carter McKenna or Wall or Felipe for that matter, but you're looking at it back on the match of the day last night, and you got to be a bit more aggressive, haven't you? You've got to meet that ball, and I think he's like waiting for the ball to come, and it gives Jota that split second where he's like run across him and he's got his head there first, and it's 1-0, and you think, oh, here we go again, away from home. You've done all that good work in the first half, and you shot yourself in the foot with relatively awful defending.
But after that, the game didn't follow the script that we've become so used to with Forest on the road this season. Forest responded well, didn't they? And came back and were looking for an immediate reply. Gibbs-White in particular was lively, wasn't he? Had an effort that was saved.
Yeah, he had a volley at Alisson, which he hit it really well. He at one point I thought, is Alisson going to get that? And obviously he's dived to his right and saved it. Then the goal, what we scored, really good play. One is like giving it to Gibbs-White, and we've opened up their defence, and then Neco Williams has got up the field and he just hit through the ball. And I know it's took a deflection off Robertson, and Alisson is helped turn its way into the roof of the net. But we actually had a go with and I think Forest can be guilty this season of not shooting enough outside the area, and you never know what might happen. And Neco Williams has hit that first time. It's a deflection, but it's a decent hit on target, and it's gone in, and it's 1-1. But Awani, in particular yesterday, his whole performance, because it's a bit of a thankless task, isn't it? Up front on your own, and he battled against Konate really well. And I think when Awani went off later in the game, I think Konate was kind of relieved because he gave him the absolute runaround, which he did in the home game back in October.
Yeah, and it's promising now to see Awani getting back to some of the form that he had pre-injury. Just particularly his presence up front, Forest have really missed that. And having somebody like him in there, he's got the strength and he's got that ability to be a handful for opposition defenders. And you saw it there with that goal, because he collects that long throw forward, rolls it into Gibbs-White to Williams, and we've opened Liverpool up and the chance is on. And it just shows you what having a proper focal point up front can do.
Yeah, and I mean, before he got injured, he like I says, he was looking like really good and everything with his power and just direct running. And then he obviously got injured and we've missed him. But and then the last couple of games he's been trying to get up to like match fitness. But yeah, he gave Konate really good, and he's quite strong. He like held off Konate when he was running through, but I think Van Dijk mopped up on one occasion. But yeah, he looks really promising. If he can do that against Brighton and the other teams who we've got to play this season, he could be like really important in the last few games of the season.
So that was 51 minutes when Forest equalised. But 4 minutes later, Liverpool retook the lead. Another set piece, which is a common theme of the goals that Forest concede in this game. This one was more frustrating because it comes to Jota and he's got essentially the freedom of the penalty area to take the ball down and pick his spots. And what happened here, Tom? Was it people just missing their runners or set-piece defending that went wrong?
Lack of communication, lack of organisation. And Freuler, I mean, at the start of the season, I thought he was looked a really good player, but he's got a tendency to switch off, and you get told at any level, never turn your back on the ball, and he's turned his back on the ball. I think he's trying to organise near Carter, and near Carter has actually had somebody. And Freuler's for a split second, not looking where his man is. The line was all over the place. It should be like a straight line, and it was staggered. And Jota's just ran off Freuler. And how you can, from a set piece, Jota, I know he's a decent player. He's been in the form of our side in the last few years, because he scored against Wolves when Warburton was manager, when he just signed for Wolves, and then he scored in the FA Cup last season for Liverpool. And how he can chest it, bring it down on his thigh and volley it in from a set piece, I think it's criminal. And it's just crap defending. It really is. It's like Forest are all over the place. And I keep saying this, if you go to watch Sunday League football this morning, you'll see on a set piece, they're in line, and we're all over the place. It's just comical. And like I said, we've shot ourselves in the foot. We don't score many goals away from home. you've gone to Liverpool, you've got the equaliser. For the next 10 minutes or whatever, just make sure you're absolutely solid and do the basics right. They get a free kick, don't do the basics right, and it's 2-1. You're thinking, I was just laughing, not like laughing because obviously I want Forest. It is laughable defending. And it's like, what do they need to do just to just do the basics right? It's so frustrating at the moment. It's you just if you don't laugh, you cry.
A word as well for Scott McKenna, who went off injured in the first half. So that starting back three for Forest changed 30 minutes in, and he was replaced by Joe Worrell. It's a suspected broken collarbone for McKenna, and yet again, another injury to a Forest player that looks like it's now going to end his season.
Yeah, just can't get any breaks at the moment. No pun intended, but yeah, it's just every single game somebody's going off injured, and it's not like a little knock or it's not. Say for example, McKenna, it's not like a nosebleed and he's got to go off. Or these are serious injuries, and like I said, you can't really blame it on anybody. Yesterday, how he got his collarbone, it's not like a training injury where people are saying, "Oh, we're getting too many injuries. Got to look at the training regime." It's just like he's falling on it, and anybody can fall on a certain part of the body and break it. So, yeah, he looked really good yesterday. McKenna did. He had the task of man marking Van Dijk, and I mean, I think he lost him on one occasion where Keylor Navas is tipped it over at the Borough Tower end opposite the Cop, and yeah, he looked all right. McKenna did yesterday, and he looked all right last week against Man United. And you're thinking, yeah, because he's struggled in games, hasn't he? Of the step up, but yeah, he's looked all right. But then he goes off injured, and again, it's yet another injury.
Forest responded again after the Liverpool goal, and 67 minutes this was, where Forest forced an error from Alisson, some good pressing, forced Alisson into making a clearance/pass go into touch, and it provided Forest with another opportunity, or rather Moussa Niakate, another opportunity to launch a long throw-in into the box, and it paid off, didn't it, Tom? This from Gibbs-White is a superb goal.
Yeah, and another thing is that Moussa Niakate's long throws is becoming a really big asset for us, and people are like saying, "Oh, you just like the Stoke of old kind of thing." I saw a couple of tweets yesterday that says, "Oh, it's boring football." It's like, well, no, when you've got an asset like that, use it to the best of your advantage. And it's quite funny yesterday. It's like I weren't too bothered about getting a corner or a free kick on the edge of the area. I was like willing Liverpool to put it out for a throw in, and Niakate was coming up because they were absolutely panicking. It was like there was a time earlier in the second half where he's throwing the ball in, and Konate's like been spun around, hasn't got a clue where the ball is, and it's hit his back or his shoulder, and it's gone out for a corner, and it just caused chaos, and they just didn't know how to deal with it yesterday. But to know Alisson kicked the ball into for a throw, it comes in. I think Van Dijk it's Van Dijk headed it, and as soon as it come down, and Gibbs-White was sizing it up. It's one of those moments where you knew it was in because his technique, you just knew this is going in. And as soon as he made contact with it, I was just like, wondered where that ball was going to hit the back of the net because, I just know it was going in. And I think it might have took a flick off Konate and then Trent Alexander-Arnold, but it nestles into the corner and it's 2-2, and to see Forest score 2 goals away from home and 2 goals at Anfield, it was like surreal kind of thing. But yeah, it was a really good hit from Gibbs-White.
And good to see him produce a moment like that, because I think he has been quiet in recent games, has struggled to find the form that he had earlier in the season. So to see him have the confidence to be shooting at goal how he was during the game, and the confidence to take on an acrobatic effort like that and get rewarded for it, that's what we've paid the money for. And hopefully now we see more of that from him, because that shows just how creative he can be. I don't think anybody else on the pitch, or few players on the pitch, would have attempted an effort like that, and we've been rewarded for it.
Yeah, Wolves fans obviously don't rate him for whatever reason, but Morgan Gibbs-White is a very technically gifted player. We've seen that in spells this season, and that shot, well, he had a volley just before that where Alisson saved it, and yeah, he is if you can bring everything together and on a consistent basis, then he's going to be sincere hope for that he's here next season, regardless of what league we're in. But yeah, I think we've got a real good player there who just obviously has to put it all together on a consistent basis. But but it's probably one of his best games in about 6 weeks. Yesterday, he had a really good performance.
So having responded again, Forest, and made it 2-2, they couldn't hold on, and unfortunately 3 minutes later we're behind again. Another set piece from Liverpool doing the damage. Felipe found Mo Salah outside the box on the far right hand side. I mean, I thought Salah made the most of it, to be honest, looking at the replay especially, but it is what it is. These players will do that sometimes, and you will concede free kicks. But Forest didn't deal with it, and the ball comes in from Trent Alexander-Arnold. It's a flat delivery into a dangerous area, but Salah's there and he's holding off Freuler, and he's able to prod the ball past Navas for 3-2. And when you're conceding 3 set pieces in one match, it's massively disappointing, especially when you've done so much yourselves against the odds at Anfield to get yourselves level and potentially take something from the game.
Yeah, in my eyes, it was awful defending again, because with how Mo Salah is, we know all about him. To let him to let Freuler not get goal side and let him get in front and everything, you're asking for trouble. And he got in front of him, and he only needs like a toe end, and which he had, and that was it. It was past Navas, and yeah, just awful defending again. I mean, we're talking of Remo Freuler, who's like got 50 plus caps for Switzerland here, and I don't want to like hang him out to dry, but it's 2 goals where he could do a hell of a lot better. And like, this isn't any kid from the academy. This is like a seasoned international player for Switzerland who are a decent side, and they're always at tournaments, aren't they, in the summer? If it's not the Euros, they usually are at the Euros and at World Cups and everything. So he's a vastly experienced player. To let Mo Salah get in front of him and then Jota to the previous goal, I just think it's crap defending again, isn't it? And it's so frustrating. It's like, and like I said earlier in this piece, is that we don't score away from home usually. To score 2 goals at Anfield and you're still on the losing end. It is disappointing. It's not like they've opened us up and everything and scored a goal with like massive quality. All 3 goals are preventable, aren't they? So yeah, it's so frustrating. And like I says, it's in last season, Steve Cooper's set pieces and how he defended them was really good, but this season it's just so disappointing.
Do you think that has something to do with players still getting to know each other to a degree, and the injuries as well? Because there's been so much chopping and changing, not just at centre-back, but throughout the team. And at centre-back, that's where your relationships build and your unit forms that helps you to defend set pieces and moments like that.
I'd say no, because if you watch the games and watch how Felipe plays, there is a bit of an understanding there with the goalkeeper with Neco next to him. But it's like, who's organising on set pieces, and people are like, look, lost, is he my man kind of thing, and it's like, oh well, I'll mark him, then they lose concentration, and then Jota gets on the end of a couple of crosses into the box yesterday, and it's just, I really don't know what it actually is. I just think that there's certain players not taking responsibility, and when we're defending set pieces, and when there's like a lot of change in terms of who plays where through injuries, whether it's like a game plan thing, I don't know. But communication looked pretty decent yesterday But it was only on the set pieces where communication went out the window, and they scored 3 goals from it. So I don't know what it is, but it's something what needs to be addressed. But we've been saying that for on a lot of things all season, haven't we? That needs to be addressed. So they keep shooting themselves in the foot.
But now they're in a position where they need points to get themselves out of the relegation zone. It is something that they are going to have to work on and get fixed pretty quickly. Forest made their second substitution on 76 minutes. Freuler came off and Brennan Johnson replaced him. And despite going behind for a third time in the game, Forest could have equalised for a third time in the game, causing Liverpool problems again. The long throws from Neco, and it was Awoniyi who almost scored a goal, Tom, which would have had the away end going absolutely bonkers.
Yeah, I thought she was going to drop in because when it come in and it's one of those like sometimes players miss the kick or they just absolutely hit it miles over the bar. But I thought he was going to drop in because Alisson was panicked. He was like scampering to his left, thinking, "Oh, might not get there," and it just goes over. And he's like thinking, if that was against us, he probably goes in because you don't get the luck when you're at the bottom of the league. But if Awoniyi did score that, it would have capped off a really decent performance because he had Konate on the back foot all afternoon. And when he went off later in the game, I think Konate was relieved because he gave him the absolute run around. And yeah, it would have been nice to for that to drop in, but it wasn't to be, unfortunately.
But Forest did come close again with about 10 minutes left. Another long throw-in that was causing problems. Liverpool couldn't clear it. It was nodded on by Gibbs-White, dropped to Brennan Johnson, and Alisson's starting to come out. Johnson lifts the ball over him, and it just comes back out off the crossbar and away. And that one, if that a few inches lower, it's 3-3, and you never know, Forest get out of there with a point. Really unlucky.
Yeah, and it's the luck, isn't it? I mean, Brentford had a chance like that. Was it Wissa earlier in the season where Henderson's come out and he's lifted it over him and it goes in, and it's like Brennan did absolutely everything yesterday in terms of, that chance, of getting in there, holding off the defender and a deft touch over Alisson. And it's like, you're wanting it to drop in and it hits the bar and you're thinking, you just don't get that luck when you're at the towards the bottom of the league. And on another day, it would have gone in. But yeah, Klopp said last night that Liverpool deserved to win, and you probably, on the chances alone, you probably would agree with him. But with the chances of what we had, it was like it would have been nice to have gone away from Anfield with a point, but unfortunately, it wasn't to be. But we're not out of it in terms of, because Everton only got a 0-0 yesterday, Leeds lost, and no, Leicester won. But then in midweek, with I think a few of them play each other, don't they? So it could be interesting. And we're back at home. So, and if we show the same level of desire and determination, we might possibly get something against Brighton, because they've got the FA Cup semi-final today. So it might be, if they get through on that, it might be a bit hard to get up for the game on Wednesday. But yeah, it'd be nice to get something on Wednesday, and it gives us a real chance if we do get maximum points.
I think the big thing about this performance at Liverpool, despite the defeat, is that it's given people hope that Forest might still be able to get out of trouble. After the recent run of form, I think some people, more so on social media, so you can argue how representative it is, were losing the faith and losing faith in Cooper. But I think this performance has given people hope and made people think, no, actually, this team has still got plenty to offer and we might just get ourselves out of bother.
Yeah, I left Anfield yesterday and I was I was proud of the level of performance. Okay, the set pieces have let us down, but I left Anfield yesterday. And a lot of Liverpool fans were coming up to me and said, "You did all right yesterday. If you could just defend set pieces, you gave us a real game yesterday." Well, today, meaning yesterday. But yeah, like I said, that gives you a bit of positivity about going into the next few games. And I think any Forest fan going up the M6 or over the on the M62 like we did yesterday, thinking we've got no chance today, was I mean, I don't want to be pessimistic, but on Super Six I put Liverpool down as 3-0 because of the quality they've got and how we've been away from home, and to come away with that determination, and that level of performance going forward. I think it gave a lot of fans hope yesterday, and like I said, we're not out of it by any stretch, are we? And if we can, like I says, if we can show that level of determination and show up the defence and not shoot ourselves in the foot as much, then it's going to be an interesting last. I think how many games is it? Is it seven or 6 games or something like that?
6 games, yeah, for Forest.
6 games. So we're not out of it by any stretch, are we? So, and Leeds, when they beat us the other week, they thought they were home and hosed, and they've lost 6. Well, they've let 11 or 12 goals in 2 home games against Liverpool and Palace, and they lost against Fulham away yesterday. So they've been dragged into it, and then Everton, they just can't score, can they? Whether yesterday you'd look at it with the recent form what Palace have been on, is it a good result going to Selhurst Park and getting a 0-0? Possibly, but like I says, Everton can't score at the moment, can they? And I don't know who they got in midweek, but like I said, I think. But then Southampton won on Friday against Arsenal, so this team's picking up. We just need to start stating the obvious, but we just need to get wins soon, and I think we can do it on Wednesday if we play in the same vein as what we did against Liverpool yesterday.
I think the big takeaway for me from recent matches, just not just with Forest but the Premier League as a whole, is that you cannot rely on teams to do you a favour. You look at Arsenal against Southampton. They left it late to get the point there, and Southampton probably should have beaten them given the position they were in. Yesterday, Palace against Everton. Palace are in form. Everton can't score, but it finishes 0-0, and Everton get a point. Even Leicester against Wolves. Wolves, in the first 20 minutes, had Leicester in the perfect position, 1-0 up away from home, and they throw it away and allow Leicester to come back into it. Leicester now have gone above us with that win, and it all just tightens up again a bit down the bottom. So for me, the big thing is now you've just got to take responsibility for your own results and hope that that's enough to get you over the line and keep you safe.
Definitely. It's like if you can't do your own work, don't rely on others. And like I said, the 2 games in particular, which is, we can't do anything about it now, but the being in a 1-0 position in both games against Wolves and Leeds and only get 1 point out of a possible 6, that against 2 fellow strugglers, it's disappointing. But like I said, we've got to start stating the obvious. We've got to start winning soon, because if we don't, we might play like really well, but if you're not going to get the points on the board, it's all for nothing, isn't it, really? And like I said, leaving Anfield yesterday gave me real hope, but we've got to show that same level on Wednesday. And if you don't show that same level on Wednesday, Brighton are going to beat us. So we've got to go into that game thinking we're at home. Home crowd's going to be, well, we're going to be behind the players, and hopefully they can get the goals needed to win the game on Wednesday.
Just before we wrap up this game, we'll now hear the opposition view. And joining us from Liverpool podcast, the Anfield Wrap, here's Harriet.
And it did finish Liverpool 3, Nottingham Forest 2 at Anfield. A very exciting game. And when I say that, of course, I just mean the second half, because the first half was particularly flat, probably for both sides. I don't think either sets of fans really enjoyed that one. But the low block was really working, and it was really stopping any threats from Liverpool's attack and counter-attack. And you could see that Nottingham Forest had a clear plan to try and defend, and then catch Liverpool on the counter-attack. It didn't quite work. And then the second half, Liverpool getting the early goal through Diogo Jota really did open things up. It forced both teams to just play a bit more of attacking style of football. And I have to say, what did impress me about Nottingham Forest is the way they responded to adversity. They really stepped up their game. As soon as they conceded a goal, they were right back in it on both occasions. It didn't come for the third one, but the first two, it was really impressive. And also every time they had a set piece or a long throw, they really caused Liverpool's defence problems, and you could really see how that was making it difficult to defend against. So definitely knew their strengths and played to them, and I think that shows clear signs of potential going into the last stage of the season. And scoring 2 away from home, and I think you've only scored 5 away from home all season, is a really positive sign as well. So if you can put in a few performances like that and keep getting those goals away from home, there's no reason why I don't think you should be staying in the Premier League for another season. So best of luck for the rest of it, and also a special mention and a special thank you, I suppose, on behalf of Liverpool fans for the banner that you did all contribute to, and that did condemn tragedy chanting. It's been a difficult season for a lot of people, and particularly people that, you know, have a connection with Hillsborough, and they've felt that this season has been particularly hard with sets of fans coming and chanting things that just make no sense to a lot of people. So I think to see that in a really clear way be condemned by a set of fans was a really touching moment and a really moving moment, and everyone in the ground, you could clearly see, appreciated that. So thank you very much for that, and the respect that you showed through that gesture. And yeah, it was a really great game, a great second half. It was a really exciting one. It shouldn't have been a 3 p.m. on a Saturday, because other people, I'm sure, would have loved to watch that. So best of luck for the rest of the season, and I absolutely back your chances of staying up.
Well, listeners, in case you didn't get enough sports today, here's an ad break that'll tell you how to watch even more sports. YouTube is the new home of NFL Sunday Ticket. And if you sign up now, you'll get our lowest full season price of the year. Just go to youtube.com/Spotify offer to get $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket. Watch your favorite teams' out-of-market Sunday afternoon games, exclusively on YouTube and YouTube TV. All right, enough about sports. Go get more sports. Terms and embargoes apply. Offer ends June 6th. No refunds.
The 1865 Match Report.
Thanks, Harriet, and welcome back. So Forest's next game is Wednesday night at home to Brighton. Now, we've just spoken, Tom, about what this Liverpool performance can do for Forest to give them encouragement and positive feeling going into the next run of games that they've got, despite the defeat, because the performance was so much better. With Brighton at the moment, they're obviously a very good team. They're 6th in the Premier League. They're absolutely flying. They're in an FA Cup semi-final, which at the time of recording hasn't been played. But from Forest's point of view, they're at home. Yes, Brighton are a good team, but it's an opportunity, isn't it, to get points and potentially a win, I think.
Yeah, whilst we've still got whilst we're still in this fight of like we're not being cut adrift for everything, I think every game it's another chance, isn't it? And we're at home, so it gives us a greater chance than being away from home. And I think earlier in the season when we played Brighton, I mean, it was an awful game to watch, wasn't it? Forest basically just shut up shop and made sure they got a point away from home. I think they got heavily pumped in the week earlier. I can't remember who it was against now. And that was, Forest competed and they didn't get many chances on the night. And I think Brighton did hit the bar. But so we know what they were all about. And then under Roberto De Zerbi, they've really kicked on since Graham Potter went to Chelsea, and ultimately it didn't work out for him, and he's out of work now. But yeah, he's got a really good side there with Solly March, who I thought he's been there for a good few years now, and I think he's a top midfielder. Then we've got Matomo, who's pretty decent, and Casado. So and then obviously Evan Ferguson, who has been an absolute unknown this season. And I didn't know where he'd actually come from, and actually coming to the Premier League and putting those performances and the goals what he's scored, he's been a real asset for Brighton this season. And they've got a decent goalkeeper in Sanchez, etc. So yeah, it's not going to be easy, but whilst we're at home and we've got the home crowd behind us and our record at home, I know it's taken a bit of a hit in recent weeks against the likes of Newcastle and Man United and etc. But yeah, while we're at home, we've got that home advantage, and hopefully we can get a win.
You think Forest need to repeat the same sort of approach that they took against Liverpool and even the same personnel and go for a similar game plan?
I think it's a bit different away from home. I can see why Steve Cooper set up the way he did yesterday, but to be honest, we only play with one up front, really, don't we? Then obviously got Gibbs-White and Johnson on either flank, so it's not too dissimilar. But yesterday was kind of a foundation that Forest can compete at this level. And Steve Cooper's a lot more qualified than me, but like I says, if he picks aside what he believes win and will get the win, then it's inspired whatever he does. So like I said, I sincerely hope we kick on now and with that level of determination and try and get something on Wednesday. And hopefully it's a win because our home advantage has been the reason why we've not been cut adrift this season.
I think Taiwo Wanyi's earned his place up front, hasn't he, to start against Brighton and be that focal point that Forest need up top. Yeah,
I just don't like when we try and play with Johnson and Gibbs-White because it's just they're not the biggest. So when like when we played Aston Villa a couple of weeks ago, you got Ezra Konsa and Tyrone Mings who are just going to gobble up anything in the air against them two. But with a Wani up there, he's got that power and strength. And like I says earlier, he gave Canate a real run around yesterday. And like he says, it just keeps the ball a bit further up the field for a bit longer, and it makes everybody push up. And he is an asset. I mean, he's still a bit raw. Some of the things what he does are a bit unorthodox, but we're playing a striker up there. It just gives us that chance, doesn't it?
It does. Would you bring Brennan Johnson back in or keep it as it was at Anfield?
Oh, good question. I think because we're at home, I think I'd bring him back just for his pace alone. I think it would probably did him the world of good yesterday of keeping him on the bench because, like I said, he's played a lot of football recently. So just give him that bit of rest, etc. And he'd be fully ready for Wednesday's game. And so, I would play him. But if you're going to ask me the question, who would you take out? I don't know. And because they all played pretty well yesterday, but if I'm pushed on one player to replace him with, it'd probably be Freuler.
Essentially, keep that back three with the two wing backs and Danilo and Mangala as your middle pair with Gibbs-White just in front.
Yeah, because I can't see McKenna being fit for Wednesday because Cooper says he's broken his collarbone. Somebody said on Twitter, I don't know if it's true, says he saw him after the match yesterday at a service station in Stoke, which might be right, might be wrong. He said it's just heavily bruised, so take that with a pinch of salt because, like I said, it's just Twitter. So, but Wall played pretty well yesterday, so he will probably come back into the side. And then, but on another note, we should have mentioned it earlier in this match report. Neco Williams probably had his best game yesterday. I don't know if it was the fact that I was going back to Liverpool and etc. But he took his goal pretty well. But I don't want to be too negative because, like I says, and I don't want to contradict what I've just said because he was pretty good yesterday. But I think Neco Williams has got to learn when to release the ball. So sometimes yesterday he got the ball and he kept onto it too long and it got dispossessed, and obviously they've just put it in the area what he's vacated and tried to punish us that way. And sometimes when you want him to hold on to the ball, he just he lost it kind of thing. So if you can get a bit more consistency in his game with the ball at his feet and take better care with the ball and do the right things at the right time, then I mean, a lot of people have been critical, and I've got mates who have been critical of him this season, and rightfully so, because I think in games he hasn't been great. And when you paid 17 million for somebody, you want him to put in a bit better performances because sometimes he's a bit rash by, giving away a lot of free kicks around the area. And then yesterday we couldn't defend set pieces, etc. But he had his better game yesterday, but he's got to be a bit more consistent with his play. But he's only 21, so he's still got a lot of years on his side in terms to learning. This has only been his first proper season as a regular starter, because he's obviously started the season. Then Serge Aurier's come in, and then Serge Aurier's been injured, so he's been starting more regularly recently. But yesterday, if he can put in that level of performance and obviously just polish up his game a bit better, then we have got a player there. But it's down to Neco to actually concentrate on when and to release the ball and when not to release the ball.
And hopefully he can build on that performance at Anfield, and so too can Forest, and take that into their next few games and use it as a springboard to hopefully get themselves out of trouble. So it's Brighton on Wednesday and then away at Brentford on Saturday. Two good teams. They're obviously both top half teams this season. But saying that, it does feel like Forest do have an opportunity to do something in these games. You know, you're not coming up against somebody like Mo Salah or that elite individual brilliance that these top six teams have, where they can win a game out of nothing. So that's not to disrespect Brighton or Brentford. They're both very good teams, but it feels like if Forest can take a similar approach and similar belief into these two games, they might come away with some points.
Yeah, and as Steve Cooper's alluded to, Liverpool yesterday got a positive result against them earlier in the season with the 1-0 win at the City Ground. Got a 0-0 against Brighton earlier in the season. If it wasn't for VAR, we would have got more of a positive result than the 2-2 what we got against Brighton. I think it was, Brentford in November time when they got a dubious penalty, etc. So, like I said, I wouldn't be afraid of these teams. I know Brighton have looked very good in recent weeks under De Zerbi, but we're at home, so don't fear them. Let them fear us with our home support, etc. And just give it a right good go. But we're running out of time in terms of we can't let this week go and not win, because, like I said, you're running out of time and you can't rely on the Southampton game and the Palace game. You want to kind of get the wins on the board as soon as possible, to then obviously give you a chance in other games. But if we don't get anything out of these next two games, like I said, time's running out and our Premier League status is slowly going down the pan.
You are at that stage now. The games have so much riding on them and the pressure's there, but it's in your own hands at the same time. And if Forest can get some points on the board, get a couple of wins, it could be enough to pull them out of the bottom three and take them to safety. We'll leave it there then. Thank you, Tom, and thank you to Harriet from the Anfield Wrap for providing an opposition view on the game. We will be back with you in midweek with our match report after the Brighton game. So until then, thank you for listening and see you next time.
Sports Social Podcast Network.